When the police found Alan Bono brutally murdered in his apartment, it shocked the residents of Brookfield, Connecticut. This was the first murder ever recorded in the town's 193-year history. The case was seemingly open and shut, though. Several people witnessed 19-year-old Arne Cheyenne Johnson stab Alan over 20 times. But when Arne was taken into custody, he revealed something to the police that was unlike anything they'd ever heard before. He claimed the devil made him do it. With the help of two world-renowned paranormal investigators and all of the witnesses, Arne's attorneys sought to prove his innocence by pointing the blame at the devil. This is the first and only case where demonic possession was used as a defense in an American courtroom. Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, the host, and thank you for joining today. In some personal news, I'm thrilled to announce that I've got a stuffy nose. Again, I get them all the time, but since the pandemic, you can't be too safe. So I've taken cold medicine. Actually, it's like cold and sinus stuff. I've taken allergy medicine, but I take that on the daily anyway because I've got allergy issues. And I've also sprayed the soothing throat spray, the Singer's soothing throat spray that I've talked about on this podcast before. It tastes like pepper, a licorice pepper, and it's awful. I've done that, and I've washed it all down with some Diet Pepsi. So hopefully that concoction mixes together. It coalesces into some sort of vocal situation that you can tolerate. I know I'm a little bit stuffy, so that's just me saying sorry. Hey, if you're brand new to this podcast, welcome. Glad you're here. Make sure you're subscribed to 10-Minute Murder. Hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening, and that ensures a couple of things. First of all, that the podcast is easy to come back and find. When you want to listen to 10-Minute Murder again, you just open up your podcast listening app and then boom, there it is. And also, it ensures that you get the episodes as soon as they come out. You don't have to go searching for it. And I wonder if Joe released a new episode. All you have to do is open it, and there it is. Another cool thing you can do if you haven't done it already is to connect with 10-Minute Murder on social media. All the links for that are in the show notes, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all the places like that. Just type 10-Minute Murder into the search bar, and it's going to pop right up. A quick heads up before we get into the story today. If it sounds a little bit familiar, it's because it's basically the script of The Conjuring 3. It's the Conjuring 3, the horror movie. It was based on the story that I'm about to tell you. So if you think, well, I think I've heard this before. No, it's the movie. If you've probably seen the movie, so that's kind of it. All right, now let's get to the story. So what brought Arne and the witnesses to so strongly believe that the devil really made him do it? This case is wild enough, but the details certainly add to the strangeness. And depending on your beliefs, they either completely validate the defense or they make it much more unbelievable. Because there wasn't one possession, there were two. Just like the beginning of each cliché horror movie, Arne Johnson and his fiancée, Debbie, had found their perfect house stuffed back in the woods on old Howleysville Road, painted yellow with olive green shutters. Debbie called it her little dream house, and the two lovebirds couldn't wait to get settled in. In the master bedroom was a waterbed, left behind by the previous tenants. Arne and Debbie laid down on the bed, laughing about how funny it feels to lay on a waterbed. But David Glatzel, Debbie's 11-year-old brother who was living with them, wouldn't give it a try. Later in the day, though, when he was alone in the room, he claimed to feel a strong force to push him onto the waterbed. Once he sat up, confused, he saw an old man in a torn shirt and blue jeans who repeatedly told him to beware. Initially, when David told Arne and Debbie about his encounter, they didn't believe him. It was assumed that he was attempting to get out of doing chores. But when the same man visited him that night, only this time his skin was charred and black, his eyes a blank white, and his feet being hoof-like, his mother, Judy, believed him instantly. As the days went on, the young boy's behavior became erratic. He was shaken awake from night terrors, and his skin was covered in random bruises and scratches. The family also claimed to have heard strange noises coming from the attic. In an attempt to understand what was happening to David, the family called paranormal experts Ed and Lorraine Warren. And if you've seen any of the Conjuring movies, you know exactly who these people are. Though controversial, the duo were widely known investigators during this time. And after studying David, they concluded that he wasn't just possessed by one demon, but rather 43 entities. The family had taken David to see a psychiatrist who claimed David merely had a learning disability, but his behavior was far from that of an ordinary troubled child. He began kicking and biting, spitting and swearing. He began speaking in strange voices while quoting the Bible and John Milton's Paradise Lost, a book the family was certain that he had never read. Several exorcisms oversaw by priests were performed where the Warrens claimed David levitated, stopped breathing, and even predicted the murder later to come. By October of that year, Arne began taunting the demon and even begging it to take over him instead. This was the beginning of the end for Arne. Shortly after egging the demon on, Arne was involved in a freak car accident where he claimed something forced him to crash into a tree. Angered by the situation, Arne went to confront the demon in the well behind their home. The well, the Warrens claimed, is where the demon lived. Arne described this as the moment the demon entered his body and locked eyes with it. David's condition only worsened, though. This prompted the family to move out of their dream home and into an apartment owned by Alan Bono, a 40-year-old man who just hired Debbie to work as a dog groomer. Being away from the house settled David's behavior, but in turn, Arne began acting strange. It was said that he would hallucinate, growl, and would have bouts of memory loss. Debbie began fearing the same tragic situation was now falling upon her fiancé. On February 16, 1981, Arne, his sister Wanda, and Debbie's cousin Mary went to visit Debbie at work at the kennel. Alan had treated the group to some lunch at a local bar where he supposedly got a little too drunk. After returning to the apartments, Alan became extremely agitated and even grabbed onto 9-year-old Mary's arm. The reasoning for that is unknown. Arne was able to release Mary from Alan's grip, and she ran outside to the car. Debbie then stood between the two men, sensing a fight was about to happen. But suddenly, Arne began growling like an animal, according to Debbie. Wanda and Debbie attempted to calm him, but he wouldn't budge. They described him as being stone-like. Arne then pulled out a 5-inch knife from his pocket and began attacking Alan. Overall, Alan suffered 20 stab wounds, 4 or 5 of them being the most tremendous and one of them stretching from his heart to his gut. Arne then walked away into the woods, leaving the girls to call for help. After the police arrived, they located Arne 2 miles from the crime scene. He was taken into custody and his bail was placed at $125,000. Alan died in the hospital several hours later. The following day, Lorraine Warren went to the police claiming that Arne wasn't at fault, but it was the devil to blame. When attorney Martin Manella was presented with the case, not only did he accept it, but he fully believed Arne was under some type of demonic possession. Martin was quoted as saying, "The courts have dealt with the existence of God. Now they're going to have to deal with the existence of the devil." As controversial as it was, the media began following this case all over the world. The trial began on October 28, 1981. Arne's defense claimed that he wasn't the same person after David's exorcisms were performed, and witnesses gave countless reports about Arne's sudden savage behavior. However, Judge Robert Callahan rejected Martin's plea of not guilty by reason of demonic possession. Callahan argued that all testimonies that were presented were unscientific and irrelevant. So the defense opted for the next best, a self-defense plea. But after 15 hours of deliberation, the jury found Arne guilty of first-degree manslaughter on November 24th. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. However, he only served 5 for model behavior. His relationship with Debbie remained intact. The two even married when he was in prison. After Arne was released in 1986, he and Debbie lived a relaxed life and even had 2 children together. Author Gerald Brittle would go on to write a book about the case called The Devil in Connecticut, with the help of Lorraine Warren. Many fictional tales came from the story as well, however the most notable being The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is linked with 9 other movies in the Conjuring universe, the movie franchise that was named the most profitable in the 21st century. So chances are you've seen a handful of them. But the question about this story still remains. Could Arne Johnson have really been under demonic possession and truly be a victim in the situation? Or was the entire story a hoax to justify a brutal murder? That's 10-Minute Murder for today. Brief and bingeable true crime. Thanks for listening today to a story that has a 100% chance to give me nightmares tonight. Gosh. Have I seen all the Conjuring movies? Maybe. I think maybe I have. I can't remember. I like horror movies, but I don't like them enough to make sure that I watch every single one that comes out that looks like it might be good. And one thing about me is I'm going to fall asleep during a movie. So I think I've seen at least half of these Conjuring movies while I was resting my eyes, as my dad says. And I honestly don't know what to think about this story. I hate to straddle the fence on things. I'd like to feel passionate about one way or the other, no matter which side it is. But on this one, I don't know. I do believe in some of the things that you heard me talking about in the story with the demons and things like that. Some of it, I don't go too far with it. But at the same time, mental illness is a real life thing and can affect people and you not realize it until it's too late. So I don't know. But the story is definitely interesting. Hey, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, if you are new to 10-Minute Murder, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any future episodes, and it also makes it easier to go back and listen to previous episodes. Connect with 10-Minute Murder on social media. Links are in the show notes of this episode, or you can just as easily go to any of the social media platforms you want to connect with 10-Minute Murder on, type it into the search bar, and it's going to pop right up. If you listen anywhere that allows ratings, I hope that you enjoy this podcast enough to give me a 5-star rating and review. It helps the show grow and reach more and more people. And now I'm off to watch cartoons or something to get my mind off of this story. Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Murder. Be safe and make good choices.